Okay, so this part of Chapter 8 is dealing with actually installing Windows. Okay, and this, these textbooks step you through it kind of pretty well, but really this will make a whole lot more sense whenever you actually go in there and install it yourself if you haven't done so already. I can guarantee you, if you're depending on what kind of degree plan you're going with here at WCJC, by the time you get done, you'll would have installed an operating system, probably at least 20 to 30 times. So you'll have it down pat before too long. Okay, but first we need to look at, how we're going to do, we can see how we're going to do a upgrade, clean install, dual boot, stuff like that. Okay, so make sure that you document what you did during installation so that basically if something were to happen, then you have something to fall back on. Okay, well, I did this, so maybe that's why it happened or something like that. Especially if this is your first or one of your first times doing an install. Okay, if you've gotten to where you've done it hundreds of times, then don't even worry about doing any type of documentation unless something special or something odd kind of comes up. Then I would recommend still doing documentation. Okay, so the first we're going to look at doing an upgrade. So before you do an upgrade, we're looking at Windows 7 to Windows 8.1. Okay, you want to scan a computer for malware or any viruses or anything like that. Uninstall any applications or device drivers you don't want to use in the new installation, and to make sure your backups are up to date. Okay, pretty straightforward. Okay, then you go ahead and insert the DVD. If you don't have the DVD, if you have it on a USB drive, go ahead and open that up and then double click on the setup.exe just like you would on the DVD. Okay, then it's going to open up a window for Windows 8 setup. Okay, there it's going to ask for the product key. At that point, it's going to go out online and verify the product key. If you're connected to the internet, it'll go ahead and activate it as well. You can activate it over the phone, but the internet is just so much easier and so much less of a hassle. Okay, then you accept the license terms. Okay, then you choose what you want to do. Okay, so you can choose to upgrade to Windows 8 or you can choose to do a clean installation. Okay, for upgrade, choose the first option, click Next, verify everything's correct on the screen, and click Install. Okay, so during this installation, you'll see it'll probably reboot a few times. Okay, one thing that I've generally done in the past is I have you go through and install Windows XP and then Windows 7 or Windows 8 just to see the difference in the installations. And what you'll notice is that XP, the installation itself changed dramatically going from XP to 7. And what I mean by that is with XP, you would start an installation, it would get about halfway through and ask you some more questions, and then you'd have to finish up the installation, which was a pain if you were, let's say, working on this at work and you start an installation on Friday, you come back on Monday and the installation was only halfway through because it paused for those questions. With Windows 7 or Windows 8, they did away with that. They ask you some questions up front, and then it goes through the entire installation and some questions at the end. So it's a huge improvement for the overall installation. Okay, so after that, then you can choose whether or not to do your express settings, do customized settings, and that's basically going to check and see for your network settings and kind of verify everything from where the installation was before. Okay, if you're connected to the internet, it's going to go ahead and give you the opportunity to log on to your Microsoft account because this is Windows 8. Okay, it's looking for that Microsoft account. Okay, then from there it's going to step you through setting up your OneDrive and everything like that. Okay, then all of your personalized settings will be applied to your start screen, and then you should be good to go. Okay, so if you want to upgrade from the Microsoft website, okay, you follow the link right there. Okay, download and run the Upgrade Assistant. Okay, if you're ready to proceed, click Next, choose the settings, click Next, buy the correct edition, click Order and Checkout. And that's going to, again, step you through all the different installations, or all the installation method itself. Okay, after the download completes, you're going to click Install. Okay, this will basically take you through the same installation that we looked at just a minute ago. Okay, It does give you the opportunity to save your setup files as an ISO or a disk image. I would recommend doing this basically just because with any type of internet connection, you never know when that connection is going to stall out or when they'll get interrupted or something like that. So whenever you're downloading that software, if it messes up halfway in between, then you could have a faulty install or something like that. So it's better to have the ISO on hand so that you know where it's at, where it's from, and you know that it's a full install, so you don't have to worry about it. Okay, now if there's no operating system present on the PC at all, then you would insert the Windows DVD, or if you have to do a removable disk, you just make sure you choose that in the BIOS first. But then you boot up from either the DVD or USB. Okay, then it's going to give you the option to boot up into Windows or to install the operating system. At that point, Windows 8 will ask for the product key. You have to accept the license. You click on Custom. Okay, this will allow you to go in and set up your partitions and all that kind of stuff. Okay, select the drive you want to install it on, where you want to install it, and then the size of your partition. Okay, so again, once the installation begins, it's going to reboot a few times as it's going through that. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward though. If you want to do a multi-boot or a dual boot system, okay, it's essentially the same thing. You're just going to repeat itself. Okay, so one, install Windows 7. Okay, make sure you have enough space for another operating system. Okay, then you install Windows 8, and then you can also do the same thing to install another version of the operating system. Okay, so it says another version of Windows 8. Okay, so each time you do this install, you just select the partition you want to install it on. Okay, now one thing to keep in mind: the latest operating system you install on a multi-boot or a dual boot system is going to be the bootloader that's going to be used. And the reason I mention that is because let's say this is a multi-boot. We install Windows 7, we install Windows 8, and then we want to install Ubuntu Linux. Okay, you install that as your third OS. When you reboot, it's going to use the Ubuntu bootloader to actually let you choose between the different operating systems. Whereas if I installed Linux first, then Windows 7, then Windows 8, it would use the Windows bootloader to allow me to choose between the different operating systems. Okay, normally that wouldn't be an issue, but some of the older versions of Linux won't have a bootloader in there that's compatible with Windows. So, it's generally a good idea if you think you're running an older version of Linux to try to install Linux first and then go through and install Windows. Okay, because that whatever the latest OS installed is, that's what bootloader is going to use. Okay, so this is if you install Windows 8 last, this is the bootloader that comes up. Okay, so it actually gives you physical representation of both Windows 8.1 and Windows 7. So you can just click on that to choose which OS that you boot up into. Okay, and then last for this part of Chapter 8 is use of an upgrade product key on a new hard drive. So occasionally when you make drastic hardware changes within Windows, they require you to re-register your operating system. Okay, so if you have lightning strike and it takes out your motherboard, your hard drive, and some other stuff, and you only have one Windows key, they're going to make you re-register it because of the drastic change in hardware. Okay, so with this, sometimes you can get by with contacting Microsoft and having them issue you a new key. But if you don't want to go that route, you can either reinstall the operating system and then put in the product key, and then you should be good to go. Okay, so it just depends on which route you want to go. Okay, so that's it for this section, the actual installation of Windows. And again, this will make a little bit more sense whenever you actually go through and do it. We will have the opportunity to install multiple operating systems in here. Like I said, we're going to deal with 7, deal with 8, and then hopefully we'll get to install Windows 10 so you can kind of get a look and feel for that as well. So the next section is going to be looking at what to do after the install. That'll actually be the next 2 sections.